Hello, everybody. I'm Zenith and welcome back to the Disney Debate, where Kat Mac and I talk about Disney products and Disney in general. So, how's it going today, Kat?
Much, much better, since I've watched this savior of a sequel.
Yeah. Last week was kind of rage-inducing rage fest, but today was actually pretty good. This film is one of the best Disney sequels I've seen in a long time. And that's saying something.
Possibly one of the best straight-to-DVD, ever.
Yeah, considering the fact that this isn't a midquel. This isn't really a sequel in the fact that it actually serves as a retcon for the entire first film. It has a very unique premise, and it does something that Disney sequels generally do not. Unlike Cinderella 2, this is not a collection of TV pilots that, makes you want to strangle kittens. It's not like a midquel like Bambi 2 was. This is an entirely unique story, and I have to say, it works. There are some plot holes, but it does work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know there's been different takes on the story of Cinderella over the years, but I never heard of one that actually undid what happened in the original and then create a whole new story out of what could have been. I was really impressed.
This is like the equivalent of an Elseworld story in a comic book. Only, with Disney, you usually have standalone properties, and then they get the Disney sequel treatment, and you kind of want to forget about that. But this actually takes a very unique approach. So the basic premise of this is that Lady Tremaine gets a hold of the magic wand that the fairy godmother has, and she realizes, hey, I can change anything, and so she turns back time to when Cinderella was about to save the day and prove that she has the glass slipper, and she rewrites it so that Anastasia is the one who receives the slipper, and Anastasia is going to the palace with the rest of them instead of Cinderella.
So of course, this means that Cinderella, instead of, getting a lot of things handed to her and having, mystical help and whatnot, actually has to work for her happy ending.
And in fact, in the beginning of this movie, it kind of pokes fun at the original a little bit with the fact that she's like, oh, I did it on my own and with the help of mice and my magic fairy godmother and stuff.
Yeah, the first couple of minutes is all, it's completely Disney. It's like, oh, what a perfectly happy life. I'm married to my perfect husband, and I have the perfect shoes now, and I'm a princess, and la-di-da-di-da-da, and then bam. Then the plot happens, and then suddenly you're like, what the hell? And then your eyes are like...
I do like the interaction with the prince in the beginning, though. It actually gives him a personality to start off the film with, because even in the second movie, you don't see much of the prince.
Yeah, this film did what I had been hoping, what I really wanted the original Cinderella to do, which was to give the prince some freaking personality, something to do.
And it gives the king much more personality as well. And the prince and the king interact with each other quite a bit. They have a nice scene where they're actually fencing together, and they're talking about marriage. It's kind of like the scene you were talking about in the original Cinderella that you wanted. Mm-hmm. He's talking to the prince about the glass slipper thing, and how the prince is just like, we gotta find the right person. Come on, I'm in love with her. And the king's trying to be practical.
I love how he pokes fun at the fact that, hey, you're going to marry whoever fits the slipper, even if it's completely the wrong person.
And that actually happens. When he goes to see Anastasia for the first time, he's like, ooh, I guess there was another person with size 2 feet. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah, from the very beginning, this is a unique take on the formula. So we have the prince and Cinderella all frolicking together. It's a happy time, and Anastasia and Drizella are completely miserable. They've been forced by Lady Tremaine to clean out everything in the house. And now, this kind of retcons Cinderella 2. And when I say kind of, there are definite points that reference Cinderella 2 mockingly. And they question continuity, but for the most part, Cinderella 2 does not exist in this. So the baker does not happen, and so Anastasia and Drizella are still at the house, and they're forced to be Cinderella, basically.
Right, because that was one thing I wondered, did the second movie happen, and then the third movie just undid it, or did the second movie just not even happen at all? But seeing that in Anastasia, still is living with her mother, it's pretty obvious that the creators are like, yeah, let's just forget that 2 ever happened and just, pick up where we left off.
For the most part, Prudence is still there.
Yes,
but we don't see much of her, and she's used as a comic character. All the bad stuff that happens in the film happens to her, and so I'm completely happy about that.
Yeah, because this time she's basically, just a face. I mean, she could probably be anybody, but of course, since we watched the second movie, we know who she is. But she's a lot less obnoxious and overbearing, and she fits the, she fits the status of a typical, damn, what's that word?
Advisor?
Yeah, she fits the typical advisor of the servants, so, like I said, no infuriation with seeing her there.
She's barely even there, and the fact that she gets taken out by the mice of all people is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we have the evil people who are like suffering from everything that happened in Cinderella 1, and everything's happy-go-lucky with Cinderella and the prince, when all of a sudden Anastasia spies on them, and she figures out that, oh, the fairy godmother has magic, and that's how Cinderella was able to go to the ball. And she's like, I wish I had a magic wand. And through a couple events, she gets a hold. Yeah, through some plot convenience, she gets a hold of the magic wand, and she brings it back to Lady Tremaine. And after, a struggle with the fairy godmother, she turns the fairy godmother to stone. And Lady Tremaine's like, I can use this. And she turns back time, and she brings it back to the moment before the Duke arrives to give the proclamation about every eligible maiden has to show that, about the shoe,
Right. He shows up, reads proclamation about how every woman in the house is to try on the glass slipper, and this leads to sort of the first plot hole in this movie. When he's about to read the proclamation, Lady Tremaine interrupts them and tells him, "Oh, just we know what you're here for. Just let's go straight to the fitting." And this actually would lead to a huge plot hole had they acknowledged it, in that during the time where he was reading the proclamation, the mice actually used that time to steal the key from the stepmother's pocket in order to free Cinderella.
And yet, we see, when she turns back time and when they brought to the specific time frame, we see the mice bringing the key up the stairs before the Duke even arrives.
Right, so yeah, that's a big inconsistency, because had they stuck with how it originally went, the mice wouldn't have gotten the key, and Cinderella probably wouldn't have gotten free.
Unless something changed with the time stream.
True, or they managed to get the key another way. Who knows? But
it's all time travel bollocks.
Yeah, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey,
But yeah, so they stop the Duke. They're like, okay, no, we have the person that fits the slipper, bibbidi bobbidi boo, and they make the slipper fit on Anastasia. And one thing to note is that clearly they have gone back in time, but they remain the same ages because Anastasia's feet have grown larger.
Yeah, because in the original film, like, the way their feet was drawn was, I guess, sort of the way that Olive Oil from Popeye's feet were. You know, they were big and floppy, you know, like, not kind of over-exaggerated, but, you know, sort of cartoony. In this case, her foot is completely exaggerated. It is, like, twice the size of her chest, and her toes are, like, all deformed, and her feet, I think, are bigger than her leg.
Well, she is meant to be, like, this clumsy oaf, so it does fit with her character.
Yeah, but if she had feet that big, they'd be sticking out from under her dress all the time.
Well, she has a bustle. I'm pretty sure her dress is big enough.
But anyway, so, yeah, through magic, the slipper fits, they go away with the Duke, and...
Lady Tremaine tells Cinderella, like, stay away from the prince. You may have had your happy ending, but it's not now. And she's like, mwahaha, and she leaves. And so the mice tell Cinderella, wait a second, the prince probably remembers you. So she goes off to the castle to, you know, get the prince. Lady Tremaine, on the other hand, realizes that, you know, he's probably going to recognize that Anastasia is not the person he dances with. And, in fact, that's what happens. But so she puts a spell on him to make him totally forget Cinderella and pretend that Anastasia is the person he dances with.
And that actually is, really makes sense, because it doesn't make the prince look stupid or anything, because they could have just had it where, you know, she showed up and he's like, oh, you fit. Well, I guess I have to marry you then.
But instead we get that nice scene with the king and the prince, and the king's just like, you know how many people in this kingdom there are? You know how many people might fit that glass slipper? And the prince is just like, it's true love, it'll work out.
We actually get a bit of backstory for the prince and the king as well, in that we're introduced to the prince's mother, or the king's deceased wife, and find out that the reason he hasn't found love is because he wants the kind of love that his father and his mother experienced, where the first time that they touched hands, they instantly knew that they were the one for each other.
And we learn a little bit more about his mother as a person, too, and how their relationship came to be. But we can cover that in the characters section. But yeah, there's a lot of good development scenes before the prince is put under the spell. Mm-hmm. However, once the spell is, you know, there, the prince actually meets with Cinderella again, and, you know, the prince doesn't remember her at all because of the spell, and there's this, like, nice little dialogue where Cinderella's just like, don't you remember me? I'm the person you danced with last night, and he never actually says Anastasia until, like, the very end, so she's constantly trying to figure out, like, if he's playing coy with her or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think because, you know, even though the spell does, you know, does distort his memory, the feelings are still there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so he can kind of still remember her in his heart, and so he has this feeling like he remembers her from somewhere, but he doesn't remember her at all.
Right, but meanwhile, he decides, you know, he's going to still court Anastasia, because, of course, he believes that she was the one he fell in love with, so they have a dance together, and
he steps on her. She steps on his feet the entire time.
Yeah, because apparently, because it is established Anastasia is fairly clumsy, but in this case, it just, like, really makes it obvious to the point where you have to wonder why the king and the duke don't question this, seeing as they were there the night that Cinderella danced with the prince, and probably not only would recognize her by face, but also by the way she danced. And
well, the thing is, the king was asleep during this whole thing, and the duke never really got a chance to, like, observe the entire thing. He was kind of watching from afar, and then when they went out on the deck on the patio, you know, who knows, something could have happened. I mean, it's a little, it's somewhat silly, all things considered, but I don't think it's a major plot hole, especially because the king himself is lost in his own nostalgia because he remembers his wife, And his wife was just kind of like Anastasia. She had 2 left feet. She was stomping all over his feet, but he loved her anyway.
Yeah, and that actually is a really touching scene, because after she botches the whole dance with the prince, the king asks to see her alone, and he does note that she's an awful dancer, but rather than question, hey, why are you dancing like crap now when you danced wonderfully that one night? Instead, he just, talks about, oh, you remind me of my wife. She used to stomp over my feet, too. And then it goes into this whole thing about how when he first met her on the beach, that they both saw a seashell, and when they both reached for it, their hands touched, and he instantly knew she was the one. So, as a sort of, I guess a sort of a wedding present for Anastasia to welcome her as his new daughter, he gives her the shell that his wife had. And it's pretty touching.
It's a very nice scene, and the thing that I love is, like, the king himself says there's no more powerful force in the universe than true love, which is very much in accordance with Disney philosophy. But it does bring to mind that, like, both of these... The reason that the king believes that the prince has fallen in love with this person after one night is because he himself has experienced the same thing. So it does actually fill in some of the plot holes of the original Cinderella.
Mm-hmm. And it also adds some nice development for Anastasia as well, because up to this point, she's pretty much shown as, almost a heartless shrew, just like her sister and her mother. But then you see that she is actually touched by, the king telling her all this personal stuff and giving her this really special gift. And she even believes at one point that it's quite possible that the prince could possibly love her and she can love him.
And the thing is that the reason I like Anastasia's character in this, her redemption, because it builds up in the film, is, first of all, we've shown from the very beginning that she's had her comeuppance. She and Rosella are forced to be slaves in their own home, basically the way they treated Cinderella. And so after all of that, you can see how she might change her thinking, because she's been through something like that. In the second film, which we don't like to talk about, but in the second film, she was still the same status. It was just like out of nowhere, oh, we're going to redeem her character for no reason. No, she hasn't been punished. She hasn't learned her lesson.
Right, and the only reason she changed is because she fell in love with the baker. And that it's not like, she learned her lesson about how badly she treated Cinderella, or, how they almost kept her from, being with her true love. In this case, she does realize it. And, because she herself feels that and wants it, and realizes that, it's not right to take it away from other people.
But so while all this is happening, Cinderella makes her way into the castle by pretending to be the royal rat catcher. And after she's talked to the prince, she realizes, all right, well, he must be under some spell, because Jacques and Gus see the prince being Jacques and Gus see Lady Tremaine putting the prince under a spell. So they go see Cinderella. They tell her, oh, it's magic. Magic is the reason to blame. Magic, we don't have to explain it. And so Cinderella gets an idea. She pretends to be the maid for the Tremaine part of the wing of the castle or whatever, and she goes in and tries to steal the wand. Unfortunately, Lady Tremaine is very, very quick on her feet, and she recognizes Cinderella immediately, and she tries to stop Cinderella before she can do anything. However, a chase scene ensues because the mice get the wand and they run off. And so this whole huge chase scene happens, but Lady Tremaine gets the wand back.
Yeah, and Cinderella, one thing I noticed is that I like her pretending to be the maid, because you see her, try her acting abilities, and, while they're not the best, it is funny to see her, try to pretend to be, this coy little maid, trying to wait on them hand and foot. You know,
And
like,
it's just like it kind of a ironic situation.
hmm and it also is good to see her taking some initiative with trying to get the wand and everything. And she almost manages to lift the spell on the prince, but she unfortunately gets apprehended by the guards at last minute.
So, like, one of the big things about this film is that it actually does have really good tension, and the chase scene when she actually finally gets the wand, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen? And then she just gets stopped. Like, this actually has good moments in the film, and unfortunately, Lady Tremaine gets the upper hand here.
Right. And using her own, manipulation, she convinces the prince that she's my maid, she's not right in the head, but I'm gonna make sure to take care of her. And then she turns around to the guard and says, "Send her on the next ship out of the country."
But then, as she's about to be like sent out of the country completely, the mice contact the prince. And one of the funniest scenes in the film, like, the prince sees talking mice, and he's just like, okay. First, birds try to mangle me because the birds tried to get a hold of him when Cinderella had the wand, so the spell could be lifted. But so yeah, he's like, first the birds try to kill me, and now mice are talking. Like, what is going on? And then the mice explain to him in song exactly what happened in the first Cinderella, in the beginning of the Cinderella.
It's basically there's the same explanation that they gave Cinderella at the beginning, but this time it's in song. But it is amusing to watch because they actually, they dress themselves up. They,
I always like when there's 2 points in this film where Jock and Gus dress up as the various characters in this film, and seeing Jock with Lady Tremaine hair is hilarious.
Yeah,
and so, while the song itself isn't the best, I really do enjoy. I enjoy the comedic moments with Jock and Gus. They always have very good comedic timing together.
And then, of course, as usual, they are extremely useful, especially later on. Because they, unlike the second movie where a lot of their scenes are basically shoehorned in because the creators didn't know what else to do with them. In this case, they really are essential to the plot because they see all the stuff going on that Cinderella doesn't, and it really helps. Helps the transition. And true, it is kind of weird that that they would suddenly appear before the prince, but you think about the desperate situation, it probably really was needed.
Also, it's implied in the beginning of the Cinderella 3 that the mice have revealed themselves to the prince at some point. So they're like familiar with each other. Now, these are the mice from the past, so they don't have knowledge of that. But then again, with the switching time stream, maybe some sort of like memory, like time memory came through.
Maybe. I don't know. I think they still have no idea of like their past association. So they pretty much decided like, hey, we need to rescue Cinderella, but we can't do it ourselves. We need the prince. Fuck it. Let's just talk to the guy.
And then we have this really nice climax where the prince completely remembers her, and so he goes off. He runs on his horse. And the king is like running after him. Is like, talking mice, we need to get you checked out. You're insane. And so the prince like rushes off on his horse, trying to catch the ship. It almost gets away, but he gets to the top of this tower and he jumps from the horse over to the ship, takes out a knife, does a Peter Pan thing, and like slices down the whole thing. It is like Pirates of the Penzance. It is friggin' awesome. Like, this is a badass climax.
Yeah, one thing I know about the prince is that it's established that he's kind of like an acrobat, because he has like this whole setup in like this dueling area with was it like with a trapeze and a swing and everything, and you see him like jumping out windows and jumping over from stuff. So I think that was a pretty cool addition that they added to him. You know, just to see that, you know, not only does he know how to fight, but he could also, you know, jump from building to building like friggin' Spider-Man.
And so he rescues Cinderella, and this is a really great development for the prince. However, so when they get back to the castle, they order that Lady Tremaine like be purged from the premises immediately. Of course, they turn invisible, and when Cinderella is alone, Lady Tremaine comes up and is like, "Hey, have you met Cinderella?" And we see that she morphed Anastasia to look like Cinderella for the wedding. And so this film has not one, but two climaxes where she sends Cinderella away again in a pumpkin, but this is in kind of an irony of sorts. And this pumpkin is rotting, and it's like all demonified, and it has demon horses pulling it, and she morphs Lucifer into the conductor of the
Coachman.
Of the coachman. And he's like a demon coachman with like crazy mouth and eyes, and it's really creepy.
He's scary as hell.
And so this time Cinderella has to save herself because the prince knows nothing. And so she busts out of the carriage, she takes care of Lucifer, and she jumps on the horse and starts riding all the way towards the castle. And so nothing is going to keep her from, you know, marrying the prince. And we see how strong she is in this film. Like, she rescues herself.
Yeah, well, I mean, granted, she did have the mice helping her as well, but for the most part, she was the one who got herself out of the pumpkin. She did save the mice, you know, from being devoured or falling off of the carriage, and she
jumped from the pumpkin, who was like moving, to the horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that takes some balls, seriously.
And so, like, she's running towards the wedding, like, things are about to happen, but before she could even get there, Anastasia doesn't go through with it, because the whole time she's been second-guessing this. You know, Cinderella had said, you know, is this really what you want? Don't you want true love? And, you know, she never actually forgives Anastasia, you know, for what she had done in the previous thing, which I liked. But she does make it seem like she does still care about her as a person. Mm-hmm. She's not going out of her way to help Anastasia, but she's trying to plead with her, like saying, do you really want to do this? And Anastasia doesn't go through with it, and so she reveals that she's not the real Cinderella. Cinderella comes in the rags that the stepmother gave her, and they resolve everything.
And of course, the stepmother, furious that, you know, Anastasia basically spurned everything that she had tried giving her, unleashes her hell magic upon everyone and starts transforming all the guards into animals. Yeah,
they turn the guards into like bunnies and pigs and like different animals. It's really kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but thanks to the power of reflection, because apparently that's the only thing magic is immune against.
Yeah, we've seen it time and time again. A mirror apparently works against magic as like bouncing reflection or whatever. So she gets hit by a spell she cast herself, and both her and Drizella get turned into toads.
How apropos.
Although I do kind of feel bad for Drizella, because the entire time she's just kind of been like bored through this whole thing. Like, she didn't want to do any of this.
I honestly do not feel pity for Drizella in the slightest, because unlike Anastasia, she generally enjoys being a heartless bitch to Cinderella.
She does. She seems more apathetic to me than evil, though.
No, I really find her a lot more malicious, because not only did she pick on Cinderella, but she picked on Anastasia as well.
Yeah, she did kind of treat Anastasia like a second Cinderella.
Right, and the reason why the stepmother chose Anastasia to marry the prince as opposed to Drizella is because the only thing she was really interested in was, you know, wealth and power, where Anastasia was the one who actually wanted someone to love her.
That's true, and Yeah, I can kind of see that. So, but anyway, so Anastasia is redeemed at the end. She, uses the wand to bring everything back to normal. And then Cinderella gets the wand and she brings back the fairy godmother. And this introduces another plot hole. What about the past fairy godmother? The fairy godmother of the future we can see was turned to stone, but we never hear about what happened to the past version of the fairy godmother. Like, was she just, like, lounging around or, like, snoozing or something like that?
Yeah, that was what I always confused me, because I was wondering, did she take the stone version of the fairy godmother back with them when they went in time, hence why she was still that way in the past? Or did they just decided, hey, if the fairy godmother from the past showed up, this would be resolved in an instant, let's just conveniently leave her out?
Maybe it's something like Merlin or something like where fairy godmother doesn't exist in any one point in time. Maybe she just exists as an entity and she can kind of go to any point that she wishes to. And that's why she couldn't help Cinderella at a certain point. Kind of like if you've seen the Doctor Who episode where he went into the time rift in the spaceship and he kept helping this lady. I forget the title of the episode, but he kept going back to save her, but it was never at the right time, and he couldn't control it because he was using a specific time portal.
Right. Yeah. I guess it could be sort of like that. I mean, the nasty version would be that, she only showed up to give her the dress and shoes, and that was it.
But as far as I'm concerned, the Blue Fairy is kind of an entity out of time, like the Doctor at certain points.
That would be the only explanation, though, aside from her being a heartless bitch.
Yeah. But so yeah, the fairy godmother is back and she saves the day. She asked them if they want to go back to their original time, and of course they know nothing about this. They're like, original time, what? And then she's like, oh, it's fine the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because, I mean, they're still together, they're still happy, and heck, the bad guys got an even worse comeuppance than previous.
Yeah, I mean, in the original Cinderella, what happened to her? Really nothing. She didn't, get punished for her crimes as far as we see.
No, she pretty much... The stepmother and stepsisters were basically just left on their own to maintain the chateau by themselves. That was their only real punishment. So, really in this case, you have at least Anastasia getting a redemption and realizing her mistake, and then the stepmother and Drizella being turned into frogs.
Mm-hmm. So I like this ending a lot.
Mm-hmm.
One thing to note is that this animation is 10 times better than Cinderella 2. Mm-hmm. According to my sources, Cinderella 2's animation was mostly made in Japan, and a studio that closed shortly after Cinderella 2 completed. Surprise, surprise. Cinderella 3's animators, however, were given meticulous model sheets and extensive live-action sequences for animation reference, which showcases just how good this is. I mean, this is definitely digital animation. Mm-hmm. It's much more clean, it's much more crisp. But if you look at just a still shot of Cinderella 2 and compare it to the original Cinderella, they look nothing. Like, the hair color changes, is completely changed. The mouse does not look like Jock. They're very, very off.
Yeah, but I think they didn't want to make the same mistake that they did with the Cinderella 2, where they basically reused animation and just gave it a more cleaned up look. Because that was a big problem with Disney films in the 50s and 60s, is that because of budget cuts and everything, they had to reuse a lot of stills from their previous movies, and it was quite obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why, even though even classics are still kind of frowned upon for their lack of, of creative animation. In this case, I think they were trying to start from scratch, but also stay true to the original at the same time.
And I mean, everyone is still recognizable in this. Everyone looks like they should. Everyone behaves as they should. And you know, I'd say this animation isn't quite as good as the original. I mean, like, it's clean and crisp and everything, but to me, I think the original did a lot of the effects better, with the exception of maybe the rotten pumpkin like animation scene in this movie, where it's really well done.
Right. I mean, the dark shades and tones they use for it, the way that they colored the sky and the aura around the characters, that was pretty cool.
And the green version of the magic energy that Lady Tremaine uses when she uses the wand, that's really well done. But then again, when you look at the animation, it's other than like those action scenes, it's still clean, it's still crisp, but the characters don't have as much personality or as much emotion as the original. Like there's certain panels that I look at and I'm like, they got it right, but yeah, not as good as the original in my opinion.
Yeah. And one thing to note, in this version, Cinderella has feet.
Yeah.
She has toes. That was the first thing I said as soon as the movie came on. I'm like, oh my god, Cinderella has toes? Not Barbie feet? So
one thing that the movie does really right, though, is that it keeps each character according to their original character. Unlike the second film. The second film had people all over the place, but these people are really acting in accordance to their original purposes. You know, Cinderella is just trying to, you know, avoid being the slave, you know, avoid being the slave that she once was, and she has this dream, like, she met someone at a ball that she really, really likes, and she wants to do everything she can to be with him, and that's very much in accordance with the original. Lady Tremaine is very much in character, and she's like the character that I like the most in this film. I liked her most in Cinderella too, but the thing with this film is that she acts still very subtly. One thing that Doug kept telling me about was that, you know, when she had the wand, why doesn't she, you know, use it more practically? Why doesn't she use it to gain like unlimited power like Maleficent would do and stuff like that? And I'm just like, that is not who Lady Tremaine is. Lady Tremaine does not desire to take over the world, of course. But no, she's not that type of villain. She's a stepmother that wants petty revenge over someone. And so here, when she wants kind of a more, she wants power, but she wants revenge in a very different way. I don't think it's really aimed specifically at Cinderella, although she is, you know, getting revenge on Cinderella. She's kind of getting revenge on everyone for her situation. And so she's just like, I'm just going to take over the castle. I'm going to have Anastasia be in the person that the prince marries, and then I'll be the queen. You know, that seems to be her reasoning. She doesn't really desire much more than that.
I agree. She's definitely one of those, you know, background villains that, you know, she's not all, you know, pomp and flash and, you know, oh, look at me, I'm evil, blah, ha, ha, ha. She's definitely is very subtle, definitely, you know...
Very manipulative, and she doesn't overuse the power that she has. And I think she's very calculating, because she doesn't know how to use the wand. She knows some of the magic words, she knows bibbidi bobbidi boo, but she doesn't completely know how it works or how long it will work for her. And so I think that she's probably not going to overstep, you know, the boundaries that she's put upon herself. Like, she set back time. That was a big thing. Now she's going to use small things in order to get her way, because, you know, by using that first spell, she's already gotten her way. She's already won.
Yeah, so she definitely, you know, definitely, like, the best of the worst of her is brought out in this, and I love it. Like, she makes such a perfect bad guy for this movie.
And because, I mean, this Cinderella itself wasn't made to be an epic. It isn't the same thing as, like, say, Hunchback of Notre Dame, where, like, a bunch of people's lives were at stake. Like, it's not Mulan, where hundreds of warriors are fighting in a war. This is a pretty small scale movie when you think about it.
Right now, if only the same could be said of her daughters.
The daughters are still very consistent, and
here's the thing with the stepsisters. As I mentioned in Cinderella 1, they're pretty much just, spoiled brats who, whine when they don't get their way, throw tantrums, and are always talking to each other and acting extremely immature.
And showcase completely their faults in this film a lot. We see just how clumsy Anastasia can be, and we see just how bitchy Drizella can be. And there are times when I'm just like wondering, why they keep being shown on screen because they're so awkward.
Yeah, but in this case, I think that their negative traits are exaggerated even more in this sequel. Like, there's this one sequence after the prince had proposed to Anastasia, where the Duke is showing them the food and the flowers and all the arrangements for the wedding in order to get their approval. And I can understand, that Anastasia and Drizella are very awkward, very socially awkward, and, they try to be all, sophisticated and have poise and everything, but they just can't because they're, so clumsy and everything. But in this case, They actually show Drizella going up to the wedding cake and just,
swiping the icing with her hand like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, reaching into the cake and just shoving it into her mouth, and then going to the rest of the hors d'oeuvres and just shoveling things down.
And then they start fighting and they throw stuff at each other, and they actually throw Lucifer at one another. I mean, who throws a cat? I mean, seriously.
I know, at this point, I'm just thinking, why the hell isn't Lady Tremaine saying anything? She's always getting on their asses about, looking their best, being as sophisticated as possible, and yet here they are throwing food at each other like freaking toddlers, and it's disgusting to watch.
I think maybe she's just reveling in the fact that she's kind of had a minor victory. I mean, she doesn't win that much, and even when in the original Cinderella, when she was in charge, she never seemed happy about it. She never seemed happy about her situation. Here, she's won a minor victory, but a victory nonetheless, and I think she's kind of reveling in that fact. And she's like, okay, well, they're doing all this crap. Well, I can always use my magic wand if something bad does happen.
True. It's just, I mean, I can understand, that they have to make the stepsisters, look bad as opposed to Cinderella, because, that's pretty much...
She's the main character. Yeah.
Right, but in this case, I think they went a little too over the top, because some of those scenes were just really hard to watch, just because how uncultured and how slovenly they were portrayed.
I think this film would have been a little bit better if Anastasia and Drizella weren't in it as much. I do like that Anastasia was able to redeem herself quite a bit, but the rest of it, like, Lady Tremaine could have gone to the castle by herself, and I think it would have been a little bit better. I don't know how it would have worked out. Maybe she could convince the prince that she's the one with the slipper. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so I think that their presence is not the best thing, but I do like that each character is fleshed out more.
Mm-hmm.
They feel more like three-dimensional characters than they did in the original, and much more than they did in Cinderella 2, because those weren't characters, those were
clones.
Drawings that resembled characters. But yeah, like, Cinderella gets a lot more development. She gets the chance to be badass. The prince gets a lot more development. He gets a chance to be badass. Mm-hmm. The king actually gets a chance to be more of a fatherly figure and act like an actual person as opposed to just a caricature like he did in the original.
Mm-hmm.
And the Duke is still his comedic self.
Yep, pretty much.
And Prudence can suck it, but she gets her comeuppance, so...
Right, so those were the best parts of the film, the strong points. The weakest points, I would have to say, aside from, some of the plot holes, would probably be the music.
Now, I did really enjoy the first two songs in the film. and I think those are the best songs. But overall, I agree that the songs aren't the best. We have, let's see, the first song in the film is Perfectly Perfect, and it kind of seems like a satire on Disney as a whole. How they're like everything's perfect now that we're, married together and whatnot. But I do like that it goes like through each character. It's not just like about Cinderella and the prince. It showcases Anastasia and Drizella and they're singing, and then we see the fairy godmother and the mice, and we just get to see how everyone is doing after the last film. It does showcase life after Cinderella well, and that's what I liked about it. The song is very upbeat. It's a little bit annoying sometimes, where they're just like all singing about, oh, I'm perfectly perfect wife and my perfectly perfect slippers, and it does somewhat get annoying when it comes to the lyrics department, but I do enjoy what the song is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can look at it as just, like happy, bubbly satire and just take it at that, but personally I don't care for the song just because of, how peppy it is.
Yeah,
and
I can understand, but then again, I'm the kind of person who likes peppy. I really like happy-go-lucky.
I mean, I do like the occasional song like that, but in this case, it's just, oh, everything's perfect, so perfect, look at how perfect it is, and I'm just like, okay, nothing interesting going on here.
The second song in the film, however, is my favorite. It's More Than a Dream, and it's basically after Cinderella, is snubbed by her stepmother, and it seems like she's lost, basically. The stepmother has, put the slipper on Anastasia. Anastasia's the prince's bride-to-be now, and it showcases just, like, what would have happened, how would she have felt, and she's just, like, she can't believe it. It's like a blow directly to her. And the song I find very beautiful. It's just like, she expresses exactly what she wanted. She had this idea that she could be something more, that she could escape this life, and she questions, like, was it just all a dream? And it's a very nice callback to the original, where she kept dreaming and she kept believing. And this is something completely huge, something completely, like, baffling to her, and she's just like, was it all just a dream? Was I all just pretending? And then the mice remind her, well, the prince could remember you. And so she peps up again, and she's like, it's not just a dream. I want something more than just a dream. And she actually gets her confidence back. It's very in tune with the character of the original Cinderella, and I love the tone of the song.
I do like it as well. It is very beautiful, and it is sort of harks back to her original song, "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes." So, in that way, it can be both sad, it can be happy, inspirational. So I do like it. I mean, I don't think it's really a memorable song, but it still is really nice to listen to. And it does showcase Cinderella's transition between, being heartbroken, being hopeless, getting that hope back, and then being determined.
And this is very different than Cinderella 2 in the fact that, she has a natural progression of losing faith and then gaining it back. Whereas in Cinderella 2, it was just like, oh, I'm doubting myself for no discernible reason.
Yeah, and there's no pop music.
Yeah. The next song, At the Ball.
I don't really care for this one. I mean, I guess At the Ball is what the mice sing when they're explaining the situation to the prince. And like I said before, their explanation is the same exact explanation they gave to Cinderella. So I guess the song what it basically does is just, saves us the rerun, saves us the time and everything, saying, like, okay, we're going to tell you in like 2 minutes, da-da-da-da-da-da, sing, sing, okay, there you go save Cinderella.
It's not that good of a song. It's very meh.
Yeah, not to mention that it's sung by the mice, and seeing
they
as the
can't
mice,
sing.
Yeah, seeing as they're like all hyped up on helium and everything, yeah, It's not good.
It does get annoying. It is saved, like I said, though, by the fact that they have very good comedic timing, and it's very funny to watch them.
hmm Yeah, and the strange thing is, like, those are like the only 3 songs in the whole movie.
Other than the end credit song, but honestly, that's just kind of
Another crappy
okay.
pop song.
Yeah, it is kind of just like a throwaway song. But More Than a Dream is repeated. It's reprised twice, I think. Once when she's on the ship, and I don't know if it was reprised again, but it seems like the anthem of the film. And if nothing else, More Than a Dream is the best song of the film. So
Yeah, I mean,
it's better than Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo getting repeated ad nauseum.
Oh yeah, thank God. Thank God they didn't. That wasn't portrayed in this movie. It's just kind of weird though, seeing as it kind of followed the musical format of the second movie, unfortunately. Because a thing with music movies that it has to have at least 4 or 5 major songs. In this case, it only had 3.
Although Paul did give an exception to one movie, but still, like, this doesn't have enough songs to be considered a musical. They're not very prevalent. I will say this. The songs are better than the songs in The Reluctant Dragon, better than the songs in So Dear to My Heart. I will find a way to bring them up again. And they're a lot better than Cinderella 2. But then, what isn't better than Cinderella 2? I mean, really.
Oh, I'm sure we'll find it eventually. So, yes, that was Cinderella 3. It definitely gets our approval as a must-see sequel.
Now, do you think it's better than Bambi 2, or...
I'm not sure. I mean, I like Bambi 2 in the sense that they gave more development to characters that really didn't talk or, interacted, on a normal, almost human level, and it actually showed a relationship between a father and the son. But at the same time, this one, while it is technically an unnecessary sequel...
It does something very unique, and It does something that not a lot of Disney sequels had done, especially up until that point. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. Like, I do like that, Bambi 2 actually makes sense timeline-wise. I do like the characters involved, but it does have a couple scenes that suffer from sequelitis. On the other hand, Cinderella 2 has like a very good concept for a story, has very good climax. It allows all of the characters to get fleshed out, but the music isn't the best. So I'm kind of saying it's a tie right now.
Right. I mean, I guess I'll give it to Cinderella 3, for having the originality behind it.
And I think the better story behind it, too.
Yeah, so I would put it above Bambi 2, if only for the original concepts and the, the action sequences and stuff.
So, in the end, yeah, Cinderella 3, just slightly better than Bambi 2. And leagues better than that other sequel. But anyway, guys, overall, Cinderella 3 is well worth your time. It definitely doesn't suffer from the problem of Disney sequels that other sequels have. It is definitely not The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2. God, why does it exist? Why? Help us all.
But anyway, when we get to that.
Yeah. But anyway, this has been the Disney Debate for today. If you guys have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, or Disney movie suggestions that aren't in the main canon, but have been distributed by Disney, please let us know at zenithrule.blib.tv in the comments thread. Or you can follow us at twitter.com/zenithrule and twitter.com/efremtrabbit, or at facebook.com/zenithrule and facebook.com/catmac. And you can join us on our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/The Disney Debate.
And next time, we're going back to the live-action format by reviewing Treasure Island.
The very first full live-action movie that Disney ever produced. So we'll see how that is.
In the meantime, I am Kat Mac /FromTRabbit/CatTCritic.
And I am Zenith Rule.
TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Thank you for watching The Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on The Media Meltdown.